Hola, soy Lola, and you're listening to the 3 Count Podcast.
Must have knew that she raised one. All of your hate won't change none. Who you think you are and who
Welcome everybody to another great edition of the 3 Count Podcast presents Now Entering the Ring. I'm your host, Clifford Red Dog Miller. You know, it's what I do. I love being on this show. I can't help it. Done every one of these interviews, and yet my team is still not around. It is what happens when you tell people they got to work for free 99 hot dogs and handshakes, and then you run out of hot dogs, and then, you know, it's COVID, so you can't give handshakes. But it is what it is. So this is Now Entering the Ring, which means one thing. We got a special guest for you. And that special guest, he is our very first full-time ring announcer we have coming in. He also has a podcast called The Experience with, and we'll announce his name in a second because you don't need to know that right now. But he is the voice of Louisiana. He is Bryce Bourdeaux.
What's up, man? How are you?
Hey, I'm great.
Thanks for having me.
Oh man, I totally appreciate that you know, you want to come on the show, you want to come talk with us, because you know the invites get sent out, and then sometimes people hit us up, sometimes they don't. But you know, I was super excited. You're like, hey, what's up?
Oh, yeah, dude. Yeah, thank you for having me, Clifford. I love how your nickname is the Red Dog, because that's the first thing I thought, Clifford, the Big Red Dog. And another red dog in this business is the Red Dog Rodney Mack. I don't know if you remember Rodney Mack back in the day at WWE, but
Yep.
yeah.
I remember
Louisiana
Rodney.
guy too. So
I know Rodney. I paid attention to him, and that's why when I stepped in, I was like, all right, make sure, like, because there's been other people named Red Dog, like REDDOG, and then obviously, you know, Rodney, REDDOGG, and then REDDDOGG, and I was like, well, I can't rock with any one of those three. So I started looking for a different way of spelling dog, and I'm from Nebraska originally, but
nice.
we happened to be playing. I forget how it happened. We were playing somebody, but then like somebody had committed, like from my high school. Someone around my high school had committed to Georgia, and the Dogs, DAWG. I was like, boom, I'm gonna get that one. And so that's how I changed my name to REDDAWG, and that's how that story kind of came about.
Yeah, Georgia Bulldogs. Yeah. So we're at Nebraska. I'm so sorry but I'm actually kind of curious.
Oh, I'm from this little town called Scotts Bluff, which is all the way on
Okay.
the western part, so in the Panhandle.
Oh,
But I
okay.
graduated high school from this place called Baird, which, I mean, you can't find it on a map, so unfortunately, but it's like low key. I tell people all the time, like I graduated, and this is the first time I actually mentioned this on the show. So I graduated with a class of 39 kids. That was my graduating class, and
Wow.
yeah, people will get thrown off. They're like, oh man, I graduated a class of like 300. I was like, that's how many people we had, including our faculty. Like,
Small school.
it was super small school, and I'm not gonna lie, I loved every minute of it. Like, sure, maybe
Yeah.
I was an outcast because I liked wrestling. I didn't care.
Well, go Huskers. Go Huskers.
Right, go Huskers. Yeah, she's tattooed too, man. Like, it's right.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Hey, look, best of luck with University of Nebraska. I hope their football team comes back to what it used to be. Yeah, I'll just say that. I loved Bo Pelini whenever he was at Nebraska. Now he's at LSU, and LSU's mine. Yeah, but
Oh,
I know
that's funny.
he burned down some bridges at Nebraska. Everybody knows that.
But you know what? I love Bo. Like, I miss Bo. I'm not gonna lie. Like,
Yeah.
Bo Pelini was the
Those
man.
good people.
Bo knows defense. Let's be real. Like, he brought in a lot of we talk about stuff on here. He brought in a lot of big talent. Like, we had Ndamukong Suh, like, was because of Bo.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
such an amazing dude. And I know, like, people don't like him behind the scenes, like in football, because he had a tendency of doing some dirty things, but it is what it is. He's back. But yeah, like, it was all because of Bo. Like, I understand where Bo was at. And, you know, now we got Scott Frost. He's doing his thing. Team's kind of shaky, but hopefully they'll start getting their footing together. It's funny, though, because as much as Nebraska is my number one team, you'll be shocked to know Louisiana Lafayette is actually my second favorite team. Like,
Yeah, Raging
NCAA.
Cajuns.
Hell yeah, Raging Cajuns. I was like, yo, they got the coolest nickname of like all time. So I'm a huge fan of the Raging Cajuns.
Dude, UL, which is right down the road. I live in Lake Charles.
Mhm.
I don't know who's listening, but don't Please don't attack me. I mean, I'm not giving you my address here, but which is an hour down the road from Lafayette, which is where UL Lafayette is. And actually, the school here in my town of Lake Charles is McNeese State. And Lafayette used to be in their conference, which is in like I think it's FCS is what McNeese plays in. And so they used to be in the same conference. And Lafayette used to be called University of Southern Louisiana. And so we used to say, go to hell, USL. But they changed their name to University of Louisiana Lafayette. And they have an old rivalry. And I remember going to games wearing blue and gold, which is the colors of McNeese, the McNeese Cowboys, McNeese State. And we would go to the games, and they would fly a dove across the field, and like McNeese would beat the hell out of them. And it'd be all over ESPN, like McNeese State upsets UL. And but yeah, I love UL. I love going to the Cajun Dome in Lafayette, which is a great wrestling venue. If you have a chance, look up the Louisiana Cajun Dome or Lafayette Cajun Dome.
Okay.
That is an incredible venue for wrestling. That's where I went to my first live Raw ever. That's where I sat ringside for SmackDown one time. I got to go to WWE ring in that building. I met one of my idols, Greg Hamilton, in that building. So, yeah, it's funny how wrestling ties into University of Lafayette.
It's just it's crazy. It's crazy to think about like how wrestling works, just like in general. Like randomly, you meet people, and then all of a sudden, like you add although we do talk about you add somebody on Facebook, and then like you're like, hey, like add this podcast, and then all of a sudden like you got to go out and reach other people's DMs, but then all of a sudden like like people will come back to you and they're like, I heard you have a podcast.
Yeah.
And it's cool at the same time, but then I'm like, all right, we start flipping through, we start talking to different people, and then it's just crazy how much like social media networks everybody together, and then you have like all this great friendships like bloom out of nowhere. And just like us, and this might be the first time we met, but we just had a full hour conversation before we ever turned the light.
I know, right? Funny how things work.
But but to get into things, man, let us know, like, how did you find your way into the business?
So there's one morning that I woke up and I was like, man, I'm tired of living this boring life. I want to be a ring announcer. So I did it. Here I am.
There's
a lot more to it. There's a lot more to it.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Who is the first companies like you really started with? Like, I want to know details.
No, that's the first answer I always give people. So people that are giving the interview, they're like, well, shit, now we have a 5-minute episode. No, man. I mean, of course, like everybody in this crazy ass business, lifelong fan. I remember as a kid turning crazy. Like whenever I first found out about wrestling, there was a kid in my neighborhood back whenever we used to go to each other's house and like go play outside, whatever. I had a PlayStation 1 back in the Gap, and he brought over a video game called WWF Attitude. And I remember we played this game. I'm like, what the hell is this? He's like, this is wrestling, dude, that comes on TV. It's awesome, man. I didn't even know what I was doing. Like, it was like, wow, wrestling, this is cool. And one night I'm a kid and I'm flipping the channels and I see this guy that was on the game named The Undertaker. And I see a guy named Edge that was on the game. And I'm just like, well, this is real. This is real life. Shawn Michaels, like this is not just a game. This is actually real life. And so it just went from there. And like all of a sudden I'm hooked, and just like everybody. But I grew up. I remember going to my first wrestling shows here in Lake Charles at the Lake Charles Civic Center, which is a legendary venue back in the Mid-South days. The Freebirds used to come here all the time. And this is actually, Louisiana is one of the most hostile states in the country for wrestling back in the Gap. The Freebirds are so hated here in Louisiana that there was a guy that brought a pistol to the show and pointed it at the ring and shot the pistol. Luckily, the guy missed. He was trying to kill PSAs, is what was going on. But this is at one time this was a very ruthless area for wrestling. They hated the heels, and they were definitely into it. And still to this day, I will say that Louisiana, especially South Louisiana, the people still believe, and it's awesome. It really is. Up north where you guys are, not discrediting everybody up there, they're very intelligent fans. They're smart fans. Down here, I'm not saying that people are. I'm not discrediting my state that they're. I'm not saying that they're not smart, but it's just they still love it. They still believe it. And it doesn't matter. Like, they don't want to learn anymore. They just want to go watch the wrestling. But I'm going all over the place with that. But, yeah, as a kid going to the Civic Center watching the ECW house shows, watching, like, the Sandman walking through the crowd, I remember was just the coolest thing ever. Yes, the beer can. I got beer thrown on me as a kid. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. And, watching guys like RVD and Test. I remember as a kid after a match at the Civic Center, Test was in the main event for the ECW championship and like lost the match. And I remember he's just standing in the ring and like it's absolute silence. You could hear crickets. And I remember yelling out, "You still suck, Test," and it echoed throughout the entire arena and everybody popped. It was one of the coolest things. But yeah, and then going around to the Lafayette Cajun Dome, which you mentioned, is where I went to my first Raw taping before WrestleMania 24. And it was awesome being there live. The fireworks were so cool. Seeing Ric Flair wrestle and bleeding like a stuffed pig all over the place. And just as a kid watching, I was just like everybody, just everybody in this business, they watch wrestling. That's what I was doing. And then later on in life, I was in high school and I was playing a lot of guitar, and I was watching wrestling here and there. Really fell off of the product because WWE was just getting stupid, like so beyond stupid. Like Captain Underpants or like a children's book is the guest host of Raw, and we're gonna have WWE Kids where they're gonna show you how to wear stuff for Halloween. I'm just like, this ain't even wrestling anymore, man. This is stupid. John Cena and Cocoa Puffs and stuff. It doesn't make any sense. So I said, screw wrestling. I hate wrestling. I was watching TNA Impact, and that was it. And it was awesome. But I was playing music. I was in a hardcore punk band, which is so crazy because you look at me like there's no way this guy plays punk music. But I was in one and a little bit, and we were playing in bars and whatever. And then I remember like these two guys wanted to do this for a living, and they were like, sorry, man, we're going to go move to Nashville and we're going to become big stars in Nashville. And I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I'd rather stay home and go to college and shit. And so they moved on, and then I was at a slump in my life where I was just like, man, this sucks. I can't do anything right. All I can do is I can barely go to school. I hate school, and all I can do is just chill with my friends, and that's it. And I met a friend. I met a guy who became friends, and we both were big wrestling fans. And at a party, and we hit it off talking about wrestling. And all of a sudden, we became such big fans of wrestling. We'd watch wrestling together at both each other's house, whatever. And he at one day was like, dude, we need to start a podcast. And it was originally we wanted to start a wrestling promotion. And we were legit going to do this. It's like everybody, it was going to be backyard wrestling, but it was going to be professional backyard wrestling. We were actually going to get a guy to come in and train everybody. Everybody would pay, and it was going to be called like XSW or something. And we were going to run out of a building here, like a pizza place here in town or something. And we had friends of ours that we were like, wanted to get trained, and who were actually athletic, former wrestlers in high school. They wanted to actually do pro wrestling. So, but I went on Facebook one day. I'm just like, well, if we're going to do this, we need to hit up an actual wrestler to come and train everybody. So I looked up wrestling in the state of Louisiana on Facebook, and this promotion came up called GCW, which is not the GCW that you're familiar with, Game Changer Wrestling. This was Gulf Coast. Championship Wrestling. And they're based out of Morgan City. Crazy how things happen. I'm now their ring announcer, whatever. I work for them. But I hit up the Facebook page and I was like, who is in charge of this? Please message me. I get a text and this guy's like, hi, you inquired our Facebook page. I'm like, yes, I would like to maybe talk to you one day on the phone. And he's like, sure, I'll call you. And this guy's name was Mike Beadle, and he wrestles as Mustang Mike, which is crazy. Later on in life, we became really good friends. Mustang is former NWA North American champion. All over, just an amazing guy. But we talked on the phone, and I was a total mark, man. I was just like, so if we play like Metallica and like, will we get fined for that? And he's like, well, no, because you're not being filmed. And he was really exposing everything for us. Like, if somebody would have called me and said, hey, can you please help me out and help me start a wrestling promotion, I would say, don't waste your time, kid. It ain't worth it. It's just wrestling, you know. But Mustang was very patient, and Mustang Mike was really cool over the phone and definitely taught me a lot. And he said, hey, listen, tell all your guys they pay me $100 each. I'll come down there. You pay for the ring. Y'all set up the ring. I will teach y'all how to wrestle. It'll take a couple weeks, but you know, I'll do it. And we were going to do it. Sadly, things just fell through. We didn't get it. We just didn't do it. But we were very serious about it. Like, we were going to build a wrestling ring out of like tires and mattresses and bungee cords and shit, rubber hoses. But we it was so fucking stupid. We had this great idea though, but sadly, like I said, just didn't work out. But the guy who I was doing all this with, Casey Jones, I'll shout him out. Me and Casey were doing all this together, and Casey one day was like, hey man, let's start a podcast. And it was about 2017, I think. Earlier than that. I think it was 2016 or 2015. I don't even remember the year, but he's like, let's start a podcast, man. And I was like, what do we do? Like, I don't even know what to do. And we started a podcast, and I came up with the name Pro Wrestling Roundabout. And we started doing podcasting, and we were doing much like what you're doing here. We were one of the first wrestling podcasts to use Facebook Live. Whenever your Facebook Live was just first becoming a thing, we would invite our guests, and they would be on the other side of the screen, kind of like what this is, I would assume. And people would tune in and ask questions, and we would do a show where we would cover what happened on Raw, what happened on SmackDown, and it later on just became me doing everything because Casey like did his own thing, and I was helping everything. I was pretty much doing everything, not discrediting him. Probably had a lot going on, but we started talking to, just trying to like in the infancy of Pro Wrestling Roundabout, we were trying to figure out like, and what else can we do except for covering like what happened on Raw and SmackDown. He's like, well, you know, they have a local promotion here in town. And I knew about it. It was called Full Throttle Wrestling. I knew about Full Throttle Wrestling. I never went to a show. And Casey had gone to a couple of shows, and he would go to them, and I sadly had to miss them. I had weddings and shit to go to, and on the worst days. And so he was like, man, it's a hell of a show, man. It's independent wrestling at its best. You know, they've got all these guys that are really good. They've got merchandise. They've got, you know, it's just like WWE, but it's like at the Habibi Shriners Temple. And man, there was a guy who was like the local hero type guy, and his name was the Southern Gentleman, Teddy Nall. And Teddy, like, if you go into restaurants around town, like restaurants where like they have like down home restaurants, and you know, they have like people that visit the restaurant with Teddy's pictures on the wall, and it's like his autograph, and it's just like him on a turnbuckle with his hands up and his singlet. And I always knew that there was this wrestler that lived in town. Didn't know anything about him, but Casey had said, dude, that Teddy Nall guy goes to Starbucks all the time. Casey's girlfriend had worked at Starbucks. Like, dude, why don't I talk to Teddy and try to see if we can do an interview with him? And I'm like, okay, yeah, that sounds good. One morning, he walked up to Teddy. You got to keep in mind, Teddy's in his 50s. Teddy's old school, brother. And he's like, man, he's talking to Teddy. He's like, Teddy, man, I'd love to bring you on our podcast for an interview. He's like, brother, a what? A podcast? What the heck's a podcast? Casey kind of had to smarten him up on like what a podcast was. And so we decided to do an interview, and Teddy has no idea what the hell he's getting himself into. We used Casey's grandparents' dining room because they have a great big house. And we interviewed Teddy Knoll and the director of operations, the director of order of operations, the dupe of Full Throttle Wrestling, Scott Duplichan. We interviewed him and Teddy Knoll. And before the interview, pulling back the curtain, man, Teddy put the fear of God in me, definitely, and pretty much told us, he's like, I just want to let y'all know. And Teddy's like in his 50s, and we're in our 20s, and he's like, I've been in this business longer than you've been alive. I know more about this than you do. Do not ever think you know more than me. You are two good boys, but don't become a smark, and don't try to outsmart me on wrestling. You don't know what I know. And you haven't felt the pain that I felt. And yes, sir, understood. And after that, I was just like, holy shit, what am I getting myself into? Like this guy's so fucking serious. And I shouldn't have said fuck. Whatever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. We talked about this before the show. It's fine.
Oh, that's right. We did. Yeah. I'm sorry. I don't know. It just happens. Anyways, besides that. So we start the interview, and like in the interview, like Teddy like chopped me, and it's all audio, and Teddy has no clue. He's like, well, say hi to everybody at home, and he waves to everybody. I'm like, Teddy, there's no camera, and so it was cool, and that was kind of getting our foot in the door. And Scott Duplichan was like, hey, listen, and he's the director of order of operations or whatever the hell he is. He was kind of like just the behind the scenes, like I'm in charge kind of guy. And he's like, hey, listen, guys, we'll try to get you some interviews with some of our talent. And there was a guy that wrestled for Full Throttle. His name was Cord the Cajun. And just a big, 300-pounder, big bald-headed, big old beard, big singlet. Like imagine like King Kong Bundy with a big beard and really tall, just a mammoth of a human being, and big Cajun. And he's like, yeah. And we reached out to Core, and Core was down to do it. But in the meantime, Teddy texted us, and Teddy's like, hey boys, we got a show coming up this weekend. Y'all want to come on by and help set up the ring? And we're like, what? We get to set up a wrestling ring? Are you kidding me? Hell yeah. And really what that text translates to is, hey boys, can y'all do some free labor for me? Because you boys are just wrestling fanatics and you guys will do anything for me. So we did. And my God, we went to this. Ironically, we did a show in the Civic Center, in the exhibition hall in the Civic Center and Lake Charles. And we set up the ring. We were there before the show started. We saw all the wrestlers coming in through the curtain. And like, there was a guy there, Dylan Olivier, and he was like explaining, oh, that's him. He wears a mask, but that's what he actually looks like. And it was very, very cool. And we set up the ring, and we watched the show, and like we tried to network with people, and meeting guys on the first night at the show, like Houston Carson, which I'll talk about in a little bit, Nate Jolly, who at the time was Johnny Swole, who has since retired, and now he's a bodybuilder. Guys like Mike Dell, he's an asshole. I love him to death. Corda Cajun, Teddy Knoll, Nigel Rabbit, who I'll talk about here in a little bit. But all these guys, meeting them for the first time was really cool. And from that point, we started meeting some of these guys, like, hey, let's do an interview. We could schedule an interview with you, whatever. So like we did this interview with Core Cajun, and we didn't have any recording space. So like we did this interview with Core we were renting out the back of a Jason's Deli. Do you know what Jason's Deli is? You have any of those in Baltimore?
No.
You probably don't, because up there they have actual real delicatessens up there. They don't have like down here we have like a chain of delis, and it's called Jason's Deli. It's a chain. You really want to know what it is? Look it up. But we used their conference room in the back because it was free, and they just let us do whatever. We're like, fuck it, who cares? So like, we went in the back and interviewed Core, and like Core was in character the whole time. We did a whole spot where Core slapped me in the face, and he really just went like that. Oversold the hell out of it. But from that point on, man, we were doing interviews with some of the guys, Teddy and Core, and we met a guy there named Braxton Hunter, who was our age and up and coming and very new to the business. And me and Braxton became still to this day, very close friends. I will talk more about him in a little bit. But, and then there was one day where out of nowhere, Casey, who was partner on the show, texted me, was like, hey, the ring announcer for Full Throttle hit us up and wants to do an interview. And I was like, wow, man, that's awesome. Who is he? He was like, there were like 2 ring announcers. It's like, well, this is a guy that we haven't seen before. His name is like Rod Stewart or something. And I was like, Rod Stewart's a rock star. Like, that's awesome. I don't know if you know who Rod Stewart is, but
I do.
Okay, there you go. Well, his name was actually Rod Sterling. And I was like, yeah, I remember like we hadn't seen Rod yet, but then like we did another show, and I remember like we had a merch table, like we were selling stickers and koozies and just giving business cards and telling people about our show and networking, which is what you do. And I remember like Rod coming in with like his bag and his suit and his microphone or whatever, and passed by. He's like, oh, what is this? And just like, wow, okay, thanks for coming out, guys. And just like walk past us. And so moving past that, we did this interview with Rod in the back of the Jason's Deli, and Rod was super cool and kind of a country accent. And Rod, we did the interview, and Rod invited us to go with him. He's like, guys, on top of announcing, I do production, I do lights, I do sound. I pretty much the wrestling show without the wrestlers and without the ring. I'm everything else. And he's like, you guys need to come with me to Baton Rouge for a promotion called Pro Wrestling 225 and help me out and do production, run lights, run my sound. Hell yeah, we'll do it. So we did, and we networked with another promotion. But I remember that name, Rod Sterling, because he's a big part of this story. But after that, we started networking, and we went to Pro Wrestling 225, interviewed their guys. And we were interviewing before the show. We had like a laptop and a microphone, and it was shitty quality. But hey, we interviewed them. It's still on YouTube out there, Pro Wrestling Roundabout, if you want to look it up. There's interviews out there, and started networking. Pro Wrestling 225, Elevate Pro. We were all over the state of Louisiana. And, in the meantime, this guy, Rod Sterling, like was hitting me up, and he's like, guys, he would like call me. He's like, man, dude, if you've got nothing going on, would you like to come with me to College Station, Texas for Lions Pride Sports, which is a new promotion that's being founded by Full Throttle Wrestling's former heavyweight champion, Houston Carson, which I mentioned Houston Carson earlier. Houston had to retire and relinquish his belt and stop wrestling due to a heart condition. So instead, he starts his own promotion where he books all these big names in College Station, Texas. And he's like, yeah, Houston hit me up to become the ring announcer and run his lights and sound or whatever. He's like, you got to come with me and help me out. And I had to miss the first couple shows. But in the meantime, dude, Rod would call me every week. And me and Rod became very close in a very quick amount of time. And leading up to that date, man, Rod hit me up and was like, hey, man, come with me, do your podcast, whatever, try to interview some of the guys, but you need to wear a suit and, act the part and help, act like you're a backstage producer. And went to Lions Pride Sports. And I saw matches. Lance Hoyt, which is now Lance Archer with AEW, versus Carlito. Lance Hoyt rode out on a motorcycle, and it was badass. It was in a big rodeo complex, and the production was awesome. There was this guy who was jacked with long hair, and his name was Alexander Hammerstone, and nobody really knew who this guy was. And now, turn on MLW, he's the biggest freaking star on the freaking show. You know, I don't know if you know who Alexander Hammerstone is, but if you watch MLW, you ought to know who he is. But I remember back whenever he wasn't that huge of a star, you know, way before MLW called. And guys like that, guys like One Man Mike Dell was wrestling up there. Keith Lee, who is now with WWE, was at that show against Vordell Walker, former CZW TNA guy, Ring of Honor guy. Great friend of mine, too. I love Vordell. Steve Anthony as well. All these big names on the show. But after that, man, like I started networking even more and more, and then it became whatever. Things of Pro Wrestling Runabout kind of failed, didn't really work out the way I expected. So then I just became Rod's right-hand man, and wherever Rod went, I was there, helping out with production or just hanging out. And me and Rod became very close friends. Rod Sterling, those of you who are wondering who I'm talking about, Rod Sterling, look him up. But we would go to shows, and we would call each other every week, still to this day. But Rod, there was a show that Rod couldn't make, and it was for Full Throttle. Rod had a lot going on with his shoot job. He couldn't make all the shows. So Rod's like, he can't make the Full Throttle show here in town. And he's like, you know, you've been on the road with me, and like on the road, you know, we were in the middle of Texas, you know, listening to classic country and drinking beer and going down the Texas highways. And that's how he started telling me, he's like, you know, whenever you're ring announcing, you got to reserve how many pops you get from the crowd. You know, you don't come out there screaming at the crowd, expecting everybody to chant and expecting everybody to say one fall after you say one fall. And, you know, you got to reserve the pops, and you got to, you know, it's all about putting over talent. The people didn't pay to see you ring announce. You know, they paid to see wrestling. You're just there telling the people who these wrestlers are and putting these wrestlers over. And that was the stuff that on the road he would just tell me, because I was curious and I was asking questions, and he would tell me just the science of wrestling ring announcing. And there's so much more to it than just, here, kid, here's a mic, knock it out of the park. You know, so much more to it than that, that people don't understand and a lot of people don't respect. But that's where I was kind of trained, was it's so crazy. It was in the passenger seat of a GMC Sierra in the middle of a Texas highway, going down the road, listening to classic country, drinking beer, and talking about the sciences of wrestling announcing. And but there was a show where Rod couldn't make with Full Throttle, and Rod was like, "Dude, you need to jump on this. Hit Teddy up, Teddy Null," which me and him became close friends. Whatever, he's pops to me, and like, Teddy, you know, I'd love to give it a try. And he was very, I don't know if he can handle it yet, you know. And he was going to give the job to his son-in-law, who was a radio DJ. And I knew his son-in-law really good. He was also the sound guy for Full Throttle. And I hit him up, and I'm like, "Do you want to ring announce?" And he's like, "Dude, I'm going to shit the bed. You know more about this than I do. Beg him, you know, please make sure he lets you do it." Rod eventually called Teddy one night and said, "Teddy, Bryce is your best bet. You need to book him to ring announce." And Teddy finally gave in and told me, said, "Okay, here's your spot. Take it." And so I came dressed in a pink blazer, khaki pants, and a light blue shirt. And I used to have a ponytail. I used to have a man bun, and I cut that shit off. I looked fucking terrible with that, honestly. I look so much better now with short hair, I think. It's just me. It's got me booking. So But I did that show. It was kind of weird. I said I didn't really mess up too much, other than asking the crowd how they were doing twice in a row. Like, "How we doing? How we doing?" It was like that. It was weird. I messed up in the main event. I announced Tim Storm versus T-Ray. I don't know if you know T-Ray. T-Ray is a guy who wrestles out of Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
Future guest on my show. But Tim Storm, former NWA champion, Mama Storm's baby boy on NWA Power, very close friend of mine, great guy. Announced their main event with James Beard, legendary referee, as the ref. But after that, man, Rod was getting to the point where he couldn't make these Louisiana shows, and he was making Lions Pride Sports his priority. And so Pro Wrestling 225 calls Rod. Rod can't make it, so Rod forwards the promotion to me, and I take the booking. And I started doing Pro Wrestling 225 shows, and another promotion comes up, Action Pack Wrestling, and I'm doing their shows. And it started just like that, bam, 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 bam. And it shows that Rod couldn't make, so he would just give them to me. And at the same time, going with Rod to Texas and helping out as the backstage producer. And that was a lot of fun, getting to work with names like Jerry the King Lawler, like I said, Carlito, Rikishi, Alexander Hammerstone, which I mentioned earlier, Rob Conway, Bruce Tharp, former owner of the NWA. Multiple names, and I can sit here, I can list them off, whatever. Chris Masters, Brian Cage, whatever. Plenty of names that I got to brush shoulders with and talk to at Lions Pride Sports. But man, Lions Pride Sports, the production level was off the chain. It was like smaller WWE like production level. I mean, they have jumbotrons, they've got lights, they've got pyro, they got like the smoke that like shoots up, looks like pyro. They got can lights over the ring. They've got incredible video quality. Everybody's got their own graphics that they, kind of like WWE, and it's all filmed and it's all very impressive. And yeah, man, I started just networking, whatever, and slowly but surely they started coming in, and I started working for bigger promotions, and I started doing boxing and whatever, and here I am today, and I've made a lot of great friends in this business. A lot of great friends. I've got family now in this business. I've gained an older brother as well, and Rod Sterling. I mean, Rod is like I'm an only child, and Rod Sterling's like the older brother like I never had. And man, he's the best, and he's helped me out so much in my career as a ring announcer. And yeah, so I'm having a great time. My schedule's jam packed, and I've got big stuff coming up. So yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just a big talker.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Because like I said, like, even prior to us like recording all this, and even like in other episodes, people will know, like, I just sit back and like to listen to people tell their stories, and I'm just like, I'm fascinated by like, because like the way to get into the wrestling business, there's like so many different paths that you can take, and so to watch people and all the different paths that people take to get into the business is just an incredible. So I like to listen to everybody's stories, take down notes even from stuff that they do. Like, for instance, for you, like, this a great thing to do is, one, don't turn down bookings, and two, always say yes and be willing to just like jump in, because it's important. And you can network and you can meet people, and like you said, you listen off like a whole bunch of names of people that you've met, from Tim Storm to Lance Archer to Brian Cage to Chris Masters, Keith Lee. Like, there's a who's who list of like awesomeness that you just like rattled off, and these are the guys that you just like, hey, what's up, man? I'm announcer match today. So it's cool. Yeah. It's definitely cool to hear, man. So I'm just definitely in awe of what you've been able to accomplish. I guess for me, like, the other thing I was kind of curious about is like how'd you develop your announcer's voice?
That's a very good question. As you talk to me, this is my regular voice. I don't put anything extra on this. Whenever I wake up in the morning and I talk, this is what I sound like. I don't have a golden voice. Whenever I announce, I don't have a golden voice. Now, whenever I tell people, oh, I'm a ring announcer, they'll be like, oh, I could tell by your voice. I don't know who they're fooling. I don't have a voice. I don't. Whenever I go in the ring and I announce, I just amplify and I talk. Instead of talking to two people in the ring or three people, including the ref, I'm talking to a crowd of a few hundred people. And all you got to do is just simple. I mean, you just amplify your voice. You can add a little baritone to it, make it a little bit deeper. There's nothing wrong with that. But I mean, whenever I announce, ladies and gentlemen, at this time, this is your main event of the evening, just a little bit. You don't have to do this. Oh, no, no, it's time for the main event. Get me started on that stuff. Look, Howard Finkel's the man, but there will never be another Howard Finkel.
Right.
So stop trying to mimic Howard Finkel. So and that's, you bring up a great point, because there's a lot of people in this business that are ring announcers that think you have to be like Howard Finkel. And so they grab the microphone and they yell into it. And they think, oh my God, I'm just like Howard Finkel at WrestleMania. And it really just sounds like a dude in a suit screaming into a microphone. Whenever, and you have to speak clearly, because the crowd, after, people don't realize this, ring announcers, or people that, just want to know what ring announcers do, they don't realize this, but a lot of times the people in the audience have no idea who the hell's wrestling. It's our job to tell them who's wrestling. So if it sounds like you said, I don't know, Nick, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a name, Nick Smith. If you're like, hey, ladies and gentlemen, Nick Smith. Okay? Well, if you say it in a strange way, the crowd might think, who is this guy? Rick Mitz? What? Dick, what? Like, you have to just say everything clearly. It's not about being Howard Finkel. It's not about being Bruce Buffer, It's time! It's not all about that. You're simply just making sure the crowd knows who's fighting. Now, by all means, add a little bit into it. But don't add too much. You don't want to take away from the talent. But we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. But that's a very good question, by the way. Very good question.
Well, I think about all the big announcers, just like in the past, right? So you mentioned Bruce Buffer from the UFC, Michael Buffer, right, in boxing, and WCW for people who didn't know that he was also in there.
Yes.
You think about in Howard Finkel as well. I think about all the guys who announced and were just on point with it, right? Because even when I think about WWE now, there's not a real person I'm sitting there thinking oh yeah, that's cool. Another great person who does ring announcing, and we've had her on the show, Shaw Guerrero, when she does announcing, everybody has a distinct pitch to how they do it. And I think about that when I come out and I listen to an announcer. I'm just you could tell who's done it before and who's their first time, right? So the guys who are experienced and know how to get the crowd, like you were saying, right? You want to reserve pops. You don't want to get the crowd, trying to hype the crowd every single time match comes out, because it's not necessary. But it is a unique experience, or a unique talent that people certain people have to make those announcements. Even for my intro, for this show, clearly I'm just yelling into the microphone. But I do have my own pizzazz on how I want to do it, so it is what it is. But it's different, and I love hearing people when they do their voice. There was that homeless dude. They just found him on the road, and they did.
Oh yes,
and they said he had the golden voice, and he was you can listen to that radio station here at this time. And I was oh, he's so good. Now he's the Cavaliers announcer now.
He's the Cavaliers announcer?
Yeah,
dude. Okay. I'm trying to think of that guy's name, but you are exactly right. That guy has a golden voice. Michael Buffer has a golden voice. There's announcers out there that are just born with it, and they don't realize it until years later, after everybody tells them, you'd be a great voiceover artist. You'd be a great announcer. Finally get tired of hearing it, and they finally do it. That guy right there, I cannot think of his name to save my life, but I remember he was the announcer on the Today Show. He would, live from Rockefeller Plaza, it's the Today Show with Matt Lauer. Oh, we're not supposed to say Matt Lauer's name. Sorry. Whatever.
We just got this episode banned off of YouTube.
Whatever. Fuck Matt Lauer.
For real.
But no, that guy, he was on the Kraft mac and cheese commercials. Kraft mac and cheese. You love it. Yeah, I forget his name, but I remember some woman came out. It was just some woman who liked to participate in a lot of drug usage and hung out in the slums, I guess, and she was like, "Oh, he owes me all this money." Like, okay, whatever. He just hit success, and you just jealous.
Now you're just
Um,
like, yeah, I'm gonna reach out to him. But yeah,
get
think about that guy like so much, and like in like you
yeah,
said, the golden voice. But then you have those guys who like train and work hard to get like their voice. Like think of Mike Rowe at WWE right now currently. Like he's a fun
like Rome,
announcer
yeah,
to listen to. And I'm just like, and that's not even like he was a worker first, and then he became an announcer because like he's had matches on the scenes. Like you can find his independent matches, but his,
right.
his voice is just like it's unique. I like to listen to those people who have like the unique sounds. Everybody from like Howard Finkel to the rated R superstar. I think about like all those.
Tony,
Yeah,
yeah,
Tony's a great, and I'm thinking about like all
Tony
those
Chimmel,
people. And Lillian
yeah,
Garcia too. I just like you can think about the announcers, but they don't. You're right. And the one number thing that you talked about and you kind of said is they don't take away from the match. Yes, their names, but like they're only there if they have to be put in a spotlight. It's because they're like written in. Because I'll think about when Lillian Garcia, she said that Triple H was a former WWE's heavyweight champion, and like he chased her out of the arena. and but
well,
she's
he,
normally
he he can get away with that. He can get away with that.
right,
Not
and
many
that's what I'm
people
saying.
can do
Like,
that.
but she normally like you don't know who like the announcer is. Like, unless you're doing like if you're like hardcore deep watching wrestling, like you don't know who the announcer is. You really are just there to
Right.
watch the superstars. But it's those ones and twos that stick out, and you're like, that's who it is. But yeah, I get what you're coming from or what you're saying about it.
Yeah. And you all those that you mentioned were great names. Um, like you mentioned, Mike Rome. There's stuff that Mike Rome does that I don't agree with. But hey, listen, he's working for WWE. I ain't working for WWE yet. Uh, I don't know if I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about that, but anyway. Well, besides that, no, but like Tony Chimmel is a guy that I've always looked up to as far as announcing. I mean, turning on Friday Night SmackDown on a Friday night in 2004, 2005, and you've got Tony Chimmel out there. And, yeah, he had the superstar stuff with Edge, but I mean, dude, his delivery, he doesn't even try to announce, and he's gold. He's amazing. And his voice, it's not this golden voice that you talk about. He's just telling you, like, he's telling you what you're about to see, and his voice is just so good, and his delivery is just really good. I mean, I could listen to Tony Chimmel announce all day long. He's one guy that if I wish he would write an audiobook so I could hear him talk all day, because I love hearing the guy's voice. Like, it's just his delivery. I don't know. Lillian Garcia and those female ring announcers out there that want to get in the business of ring announcing. And this is my advice to female ring announcers. And I mean, I'm in no place to say what you can and what you cannot do. I'm a male ring announcer. And typically a male ring announcer, those of you male ring announcers out there, wear a suit. Don't half-ass it. You wear a suit. A polo shirt and jeans is okay if the promoter allows it. But if you want a job, dress for the job. What are the guys on WWE wearing? They're wearing suits and ties. So wear a suit and tie. You know, it took me a while to figure out, wait, I need to be wearing a tie. It was Nigel Rabbit who was the one that was like, you need to wear a tie. You need to wear a tie. And he's British. I forget. But no, I see ring announcers out there, and I'm not throwing anybody under the bus. And I hope we have future ring announcers or current ring announcers listening to this right now, because there's a lot of announcers out there that don't get the advice, that don't get the help that they want or that they need. They're just given a microphone by the promoters and, hey kid, you suck at wrestling. Face it, you can't bump. Here's a microphone. You're the announcer now. And to me, that's bullshit. That's like telling the ring announcer, hey kid, you suck at ring announcing. Time to be a wrestler. Like, that's like telling a magician, hey, you're not really good at magic, but you could be a mechanic. Easy. Yeah, it's like doesn't make any sense. You could be an animal handler. What? Um, but they're not. They're just thrown out there to the wolves, and they don't know what they're doing, and they need to be trained. There's ways to do this shit. It's not just half-assed and do what you see on TV. Yeah, that's a little bit, but you need help. You need advice. And getting back to the suit thing, I see a lot of announcers out there currently that go out there and they wear like a hat, which if you the exception of wearing a hat, if you suffer from, I don't know, if you're afraid you don't want anybody seeing that you have, that you're bald, if you're afraid of that, then I guess you can wear a hat. Or if you have cancer or something, or if you have a scar on your head you don't want people to see, I guess that's okay to wear a hat. It is. But if you have no reason at all to wear a hat and you're wearing a hat because you think it looks cool, take the hat off, you know. Plain and simple. Just it looks bad. I see a lot of announcers out there that put on a luchador mask and get in the ring and announce. That's stupid. It's stupid, and you're disrespecting the position that you're in by doing that. And I see a lot of announcers out there today, wrestling ring announcers, and this is something I see a lot of people out there that announce all over the country for promotions like, okay, I'm not going to name any promotions because that's clearly calling people out. I'm just going to say this. A lot of announcers out there think I have to wear the most brightest and shiniest and most attractive looking suit. I got to wear the lime greens. I got to wear the yellows. I got to buy that suit that shines gold or silver. I got to wear the suit that's got the stripes on it, or the suit that's got all the, polka dots and the rainbow and the zebra stripes and the tiger stripes, whatever. No. That takes away from the wrestlers. It takes away from do you whenever you turn on WWE, the ring announcer is wearing black, brown, gray, blue.
Navy.
That's it.
Navy.
Navy falls under blue.
No. Let's just call it Navy, because we don't see them out there with the powder blues. Like this isn't Dumb and Dumber.
Okay, good. Yeah, you're right. I forget the color. I'm bad with colors, but there's a type of blue that's like a lighter blue that is acceptable. But if you go out there and you think, oh man, it's gonna be so cool. I bought this jacket on Amazon. It's gonna be so cool, dude. Everybody's gonna tell me I'm wearing such a cool jacket. Like, dude, you're taken away from the wrestlers, and you don't know it because someone hasn't smartened you up yet. But you're slapping a whole bunch of people in the face by doing it. And I know a lot of guys out there that consider themselves like, a big deal and like, carry themselves highly, and that's great. But, whenever you go out there, you're expecting people to say, wow, I like your suit. That's what they're expecting, because it's exciting, it's bright, it's shiny, and it's taken away from the wrestlers because it just is. Me, I wear stuff to blend in the background. I want to be seen, but I don't want to be the focus of the attention. And there's a lot of guys out there that are doing that, or wear the crazy ass shoes, or, I don't know, it's like the crazy ass suits, whatever. No, don't do that. Not good. And like I said, it takes away from the talent, and they're the reason why you're there. And I will tell you when I figured that out. I have in my closet a blazer that I wore once and only once, and I will never wear it again at a show. It's what I call the Fruity Pebble Nightmare. It is an old jacket that was gifted to me, and it's like light green, baby blue, pink, and yellow squares, checkers with different colors. And it's an old suit, and it's very old, like almost 50 years old. And I wore it, and I announced. And there was an old school guy, and I'm not going to mention his name, but he told me, he said, don't wear that again. That takes away from the talent. It's not good. You're taking away, and pretty much everything I explained to you, that's what he told me. And he's like, just don't wear that. Like, wear something else, because 9 times out of 10, everybody's telling you great suit, but not enough people are telling the guys, hey, great gear. So That's something to think about. And I see a lot of guys wearing that shit, and it's not good. It's not a good look. And they think it is, but it ain't.
No, I mean it's a fair point to make, and a lot of great advice, because you know what?
Yeah.
Actually, all 4 questions I was going to ask you, you have already answered all those questions.
Ooh.
Include future advice.
Hey, really quick. Girls, you can wear whatever you want. You can wear whatever. It's different. Guys, I mean, we're not going to go out there and wear a clown suit, you know? We're the announcer. We're supposed to dress like the announcer. Lillian Garcia. Okay, so Mike McGurk. This is way back in the day, 90s. Mike McGurk was, I think, the first female ring announcer employed by WWE. She wore suits. She was a female ring announcer, and she always wore suits because she was just thrown to the wolves. Lillian Garcia wore dresses, and you can wear whatever you want if you're a female ring announcer. You can wear whatever you want, but the female ring announcers can get away with a little bit more, but you still got to be a ring announcer, and you got to remember, don't put yourself over the wrestlers. Plain and simple.
True. All great advice. But I will have to say, man, like I said, you answered like all my questions I already had for you, so we don't have to worry about that. But we will get into the best part of this podcast, which is the 10 count questions. So here's how it works. I'm gonna fire off a bunch of questions at you rapidly. You can give me answers first thought that comes to mind.
Okay, cool.
It's gonna be kind of tough because we're also gonna put it on the imaginary timer. Bing! And here we go. SmackDown or Raw?
SmackDown or Raw? SmackDown all day.
Favorite color?
Purple.
Best entrance?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would say Raven in the early days of TNA, where like out of nowhere he would just be like in the parking lot and like his music would play, maybe a camera following, and then he would just walk into the arena and just walk through the crowd. It's a tie up between him and I don't know, Undertaker at WrestleMania 19 or Sandman at ECW One Night Stand, or even Atsushi Onita. I'm giving you a bunch of them, but Atsushi Onita, whenever he was a heel and was at the Tokyo Dome, and he was the most hated man in the entire country of Japan, and he came out smoking a cigarette, and people were just throwing trash at him, and he's just like flipping everybody off, just like smiling and shit. Smoking a cigarette, and he brings out a folding chair, sits in the chair, and people like a big gulp like Coke hits him in the face, and he's just like, and he's like laughing and shit. People hate him. It's awesome. I'm sorry, but yeah, those are.
Favorite movie?
This is a great question because I might have a new favorite movie. Uncut Gems. And I am a huge movie buff, and I recently saw Uncut Gems. It's one of the greatest movies I've ever seen in my entire life. Safdie brothers knocked it out of the park.
Facts.
Freaking awesome.
What about, all right, so next question, JR or Michael Cole?
JR all day long.
All right, favorite car?
Favorite car? Great question. I'd love to tell you my car, but that's kind of lame. There's a lot of them out there, and I'm kind of a car buff too. I would say right now, just off the top of my head, probably the Mustang Shelby or Shelby Cobra,
yeah.
Super Snake, GT, whatever year, doesn't matter to me.
Favorite song?
Favorite song ever?
Yeah.
That's a hard question. Okay, I'm just gonna give a random one. An American Trilogy, Elvis Presley live in Hawaii.
Okay. Favorite podcast?
Favorite podcast? Got a lot of them. I will say, I'll tell you what, I'm gonna put somebody over right now. Okay, I could say Joe Rogan, I could say Jericho, I could say all that shit. I'm putting somebody over. My favorite podcast, The Adventures of Johnny New York. If you're a baseball fan, you need to look him up. The Adventures of Johnny New York. This guy is a close friend of mine. He's been to every major league ballpark in the country, and every episode is like his stories about how he got there, his travels, why he decided to go, the game he visited, how the team's doing that year, the history of the team, the history of the ballpark, what he ate, what did he do. It's awesome. The Adventures of Johnny New York. He's everywhere. Spotify, all that shit.
Definitely had to put that one over. Nominate one person to be on this podcast.
Have you interviewed Tim Storm yet?
No, that's like on my golden list of people to get.
It's a great interview. Other than him, I would say Tim Storm or James Beard, which James is just, oh my God, the stories from him. Andrew Anderson would be another really good one. Andrew, he lives in Jersey, New Jersey. So it was close to you. Andrew's got some crazy ass stories. So yeah.
And last but not least, my favorite question to ask every single person who comes on this podcast: favorite curse word.
I don't know. You put me on the spot.
I use them all. I use them all equally.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
let's just say goddamn.
all right, we'll go with that. That's fine with me. We'll take the answers. All right. So with that being said, that is the 10 count questions. So all I need from you is to let our listeners and our viewers know where they can find you.
Yeah.
And what else you got going on?
That's a great question. I was about to say. So I guess I'll go straight up right now. I don't know what I should say first. If I should wait and tell everybody where you can find me later on, or I can do it right now. Whatever. You find me, Bryce Bourdeaux on Facebook, easy. And then I'm on Instagram. My announcer page is Bryce Bourdeaux. I think MC or ring announcer, something. It's just me in a suit. I don't really post that much stuff on Instagram. It's mostly Facebook. That's what I'm most active on. I do have an Instagram, however, if you really want to follow it. It's completely insane. I post random pictures, and people don't believe it's me doing it, but it's me. It's kind of like John Cena's Instagram, but better. ECYRBXXXIII. Look it up if you're really curious. But follow me on Facebook, though. That's where I'm most active. You can see all the shit I'm on. It's awesome.
And then, you got future projects coming up. Fire those away too.
Yes. So recently, and dude, it's so crazy, man, because whenever I don't like to talk about it because I think it's what everybody's talking about. But this whole situation started in our country with this pandemic. Whenever it first started, all the shows came to a halt and nobody was running shows. And people were talking, well, what do we do? WWE's doing, they're filming stuff with no audience. What do we do? What do we do in the state of Louisiana? Which I was just working Louisiana shows. Not WWE. Pro Wrestling 225 they were taping events. They built a little studio in someone's shop, and we spent the day in a hot warehouse filming a tournament. And the commission got wind of it, and the commission banned wrestling in the state of Louisiana. So we are not allowed to wrestle in the state of Louisiana right now due to the current pandemic. And so that has opened doors for me to go outside of the state. And for a while, I sat at home on the weekends where I should have been out of town, just being like, man, this sucks. Like, I'll probably never announce ever again. There went my career. And I said, 2020 is the worst year ever. It sucks. 2020 has become one of the best years ever for me for my announcing. 2020 is freaking amazing right now for me. I just recently, it's just the doors opened up in the state of Mississippi for me to work at the promotion called Battle Zone Championship Wrestling. They run just all over the state of Mississippi, which they are the best promotion in the state of Mississippi as far as wrestling goes. They're bringing a lot of talent from all over the Gulf Coast. Good stuff over there. Old school booking, very cool. They do TV, which is pretty sweet. Internet TV, Facebook, YouTube, whatever. But I started working with them, which has been awesome. And then I decided to cut my hair, which was during COVID, which was awesome. It was a great decision because apparently that helped. I look a lot more professional now. I don't know. It's just I look at old pictures and I'm just like, wow, what was I thinking? And then so on top of that, out of nowhere, recently, so Lions Pride Sports has been going on, and over the past year, 2020, 2019, Lions Pride Sports in Houston Carson, they had someone that they were training to ring announce, and they were letting her do the ring announcing, and they had told Rod, listen, you've got a lot going on, and he was missing shows. So Rod just kind of took a step back and whatever. They wanted someone to come in and help her and teach her really what to do. Here we have a case of a promoter that really doesn't know the exact science of ring announcing because there's a lot to it. So Rod was going to do it. Rod had to work. So Rod told Houston Carson, we'll hit up Bryce. And Houston said, hell yeah, I will. So he hit me up to help her and train her. And it was for their big 3rd-year anniversary show, and I've been with the company since its inception. I said, hell yeah, I'll do it. So I drove to College Station, Texas, and it was the grand opening of their new school, which is this huge building called the Lion's Den. And they've got a promo room. They've got an area for nutrition. They've got a physical trainer's room. They have multiple offices, a conference room, a film study room, a place where you can get your promo picks done. Like I said, a promo room where you can give your promos and you watch your promo and take notes and edit whatever. And then in the back of the whole thing, there is the studio and there's jumbotrons, there's lights. Everything Lions Pride Sports it's in one studio, and it's awesome. It is absolutely phenomenal. It's very comparable to what Booker T has in Houston, Texas for Reality of Wrestling, which a lot of people, I'm sure you might know about Reality Wrestling. It's very comparable to what that is. And so this was the debut show at that venue, at the Lions Den, which is the permanent residence of Lions Pride Sports, in their 3rd-year anniversary show. And so I'm on the way there. I got my suit. I'm packed. I'm loaded. I'm ready to go. Ready to go knock it out of the park, which is a term that I've been using a lot. Knock it out of the park, which is what I always try to do. Houston texts me on the way there, and he says, well, listen, the girl can't make it. So you're in, and you're announcing the entire show. I said, sweet. A lot of big names on the show. Edgren Stone, Will Allday, which is both those guys, Reality Wrestling. Gino Medina, which is on MLW right now, was on that show. Jordan Lennox was on that show. One Man Mike Dell, Thomas Matthias. The Mountain, Cade Carson, Drake Durden, a lot of good Texas independent wrestling talent. Chavi Chulo, Nobi Bryant, which is our heavyweight champion at Lions Pride Sports. I announced the show, and I did what I always love to do, and that's knock it out of the park, and it got me the job. And I had a whole spiel I was going to give Houston and kind of present to him, maybe you should move forward and bring me in. I'm always going to be there. And I was going to go talk to him during the show, and he turned around, and he saw me, and he was just like, you're hired. And it's like, hell yeah. So I am the new voice of Lions Pride Sports, and it feels really good to say that. Being with the promotion since its inception and now becoming the voice of Lions Pride Sports. And you can check out Lions Pride Sports on Facebook, Lions Pride Sports. Look them up on the internet, Google, whatever. Lions Pride Productions, and you could sign up for their wrestling school, which is one of the best wrestling schools in the country. And there's all kinds of stuff there. Their production level, dude, is so good. It's so good. It's some of the best wrestling in the country. It really is. And they run out of College Station, Texas, which is the home of Texas A&M. But on top of that, which it's so crazy, within a couple weeks, I get a text one night that my name is being brought up in meetings for to become the new ring announcer of SWE Fury. SWE is a promotion that now is doing huge things. They're based out of the Dallas area, and SWE is on. It's the fastest rising promotion in the country. Just in the short time of SWE being a thing, they're on multiple TV stations. They're all over the country. You can get them on Roku, on multiple TV channels on there. They're on Fight TV, of course, everybody is, YouTube, whatever. They're on CW affiliates all over the country, which is awesome. They have a lot going on right now, and I'm hearing there's even more stuff, more ways you can watch SW Fury, and they're bringing in huge names. Dude, the next show, Teddy Long is actually the general manager. The Boogeyman is one of the stars on the show. Kevin Sullivan just become the new color commentator. Mark Henry will be at the next show. Red Dog, Rodney Mack. Jazz, former WWF Women's Champion Jazz. She is the director of women's wrestling for SWE Fury. Reinforcer, Andrew Anderson, works for him as well. Supertex, Brent McKenzie. Tim Storm is on the show. Second generation star, daughter of Terry Bam Bam Gordy. Miranda Gordy is their women's champion. Tim Storm is their heavyweight champion. Moonshine Mantell. I'm naming off a lot of people. Jordan Grace has wrestled for them before. There's probably some that I'm forgetting, and I apologize, but they're bringing in huge names, and it's so crazy because Teddy Long is the general manager now. He is in charge of what goes on behind the scenes. SWE didn't hit up Teddy Long. Teddy Long hit up SWE because he found out about him, and he's like, this is some of the best wrestling I've seen in a while. Kevin Sullivan they didn't hit him up. He hit up SWE, and this is a true story. His personal friend, the Reinforcer Andrew Anderson, worked a show for SWE, and he saw some SWE clips online, and he said it on a podcast. You can look it up. SWE is the best wrestling he's seen in the past 20 years. This is the Taskmaster, Kevin Sullivan, former WCW guy. Kevin Sullivan saying this is the best wrestling he has seen in the past 20 years. That just shows you right there what SWE is bringing to the table. SWE is the real deal, and this is only just the beginning of SWE. You know, I hate to say this, but AEW is on one TV channel. Okay, SWE is all over the place. Yeah, they're on multiple TV channels, and they've got some major networks they're working with too. They've got something working with Six Flags, the amusement parks. They'll be doing pay-per-views with them hopefully soon. So there's all kinds of stuff. And they have signed me to be their new ring announcer, which is so cool. I worked the pilot episode of SWE in Canton, Texas. I was one of two announcers. They decided to use the other guy. He was a little bit more convenient. And he had a pretty good run with SWE. Sadly, things just didn't work out. He had other things going on in his life. And here I am. I'm back with SWE. And I've had a lot of great friends over there that put the word in for me. And I never asked them to. They just did. And I love them to death for it. And I'm here with SWE, man. And it feels great. I'm working with big promotions. And I've got some it's absolutely crazy to say this, but I've even got stuff in the works right now that I'm not supposed to be talking about. But I've got some big stuff on the table. Like if I get a call back, which we've been talking back and forth, but if I get the for sure, yeah, you're hired, I can quit my shoot job and I'll be working for them that big. So yeah, lots of stuff going on right now with me, man. And I'm loving it. Like I said, 2020 has been a great year for me. Screw COVID, I'm living it. and it's awesome. Having a great time announcing for two of the biggest promotions in the state of Texas, and everybody wants me. And we mentioned earlier, always say yes, and yes, always say yes. I'm getting to the point now where I've got to say no to a lot of people because my schedule's jam-packed, and I'm just a ring announcer. How many ring announcers do you know whose schedule is jam-packed on the weekends? Every weekend I'm with a different promotion. There's only a few of them that can say they're doing that, but I'm one of them. So I'm living life, and I'm having a great time.
Bet. Well, that's awesome, man. That you got great stuff going on for you. So with that being said, though, I am Clifford Red Dog Miller here on the 3 Count Podcast presents Now Entering the Ring with our guest Bryce Bourdeaux, and you can catch us here and check out the next episode. So be there or be somewhere else.
Be squared.
Hello, 3 Count Podcast. If you enjoy what you're watching and you wouldn't mind going out your day to support us, go follow us on Twitter at 3count_pod, Instagram 3countpod, and if you want to look dripped out like your boy JJ, go to prowrestlingtees.com/the3countpod, and it's the number 3. Oh, and by the mention, we have a YouTube channel, so go check that out. The 3 Count Podcast with the number 3. JJ out.